This is the Book Deal Podcast,
where you will discover the inspiring stories of the authors behind your favourite books.
No matter what stage of writing you are at, we've got you covered. I'm Tina Strachan.
And I'm Madeleine Cleary, and join us as we pull back the curtain of published authors.
One deal at a time.
The Book Deal Podcast acknowledges the traditional owners of the land and waters which it's recorded on, and pays respect to their elders past, present and emerging. We're back.
Madeleine Cleary, we're back. This is so exciting. I feel like I haven't spoken to you for a while.
Oh, it's been so long. And I'm glad we're just hitting record as well, because we've got like lots to talk about and lots to catch up on. And tell Tina, what have you been up to? You've been up to lots of interesting things as always.
Yes, not as interesting as you. And I'm very excited for today's episode because I get to interview you. So this has been my
I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this one. And I can admit I've been looking forward to this one the most of all the podcasts.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool podcast to be interviewed on.
Thank you for having me, Tina.
Oh, look, we're a bit biased. But yes, okay, well, let's do a quick catch-up anyway. My stuff's not as exciting. Actually, no, that's not true. It is pretty exciting as well. I think since we caught up recently, I have had my final pages for book 2 in the Wild Zoo series come through, and then have a look at that. So where it's all beautifully typeset on, it's just in a PDF, but it's all typeset, and you have all the amazing illustrations in there, and just checking that everything looks great, just giving it one nice look over before it goes to print.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you're already at this stage again with book 2.
Yes, it is very, very exciting. So Nika and the Storm, that one is called.
And when's that out, Tina?
So that'll be July 1st.
Mm-hmm.
So that's only a few months away, quite soon actually. So now I'm in the process of prepping for book 2 launch, which is really exciting. So
you did a big launch for book 1. Are you going to do a big one for book 2 as well?
I think I'm just planning on a few more things, and I'm hoping to do some stuff in Melbourne and Victoria around the traps.
I saw that. Oh my gosh, you sent a message while I was at Sorrento, and I think I was at some very fancy party having drinks with Helen Garner. So like as you do, I did see a message saying you were going to perhaps do a launch in Melbourne, and I did get very excited, but of course I forgot to respond because
because you were busy. But I prefaced all my messages with ignore this one, don't look at this until Sunday. I know you're busy. I'm just brain dumping here.
I love that. I'm glad you're keeping me in the loop because yes, it's all interesting things.
Oh, so that'll be super exciting. So yes, hopefully some nice fun launches around the place, and a few up here in Queensland. And
now, you know that coming to Melbourne in July for Queenslanders is a tricky thing to do.
I need to buy a puffer jacket and some thermals. Okay.
You may need that. It also takes a lot of encouragement for Melburnians to come out of their nest. But I will do it for you.
I hope so.
Out of hibernation.
It'll be a fun thing to come out of hibernation for.
Absolutely.
Well, I promise to make it exciting and fun if it all comes together.
Well, we have a lot of Melburnian listeners, I'm sure, according to the data we do. So I bet there'll be a lot of people keen to come.
Yeah, a lot of the debut crew down there too. Yeah. So I always see everybody posting all the cool things that they're doing. Everyone's launches, Sydney and Melbourne, and I don't get to go to them. I have massive FOMO. So yes, hopefully I get to see everyone when I'm down. Anyway.
Well, you're always welcome. You are welcome to move down here permanently as well. I have a
pretty cool lit community down there. Oh, I might take you up on that spare room for a writer's retreat, maybe.
You should.
But anyway, that's what's been keeping me busy. What about you, Madeleine? You literally have just got back yesterday from something super exciting, but also the last 4 weeks or so you've really been getting ready for the release.
Yeah, I know, it's been wonderful, and I think it's exciting. I'm not really nervous about anything. I'm just really excited for it to come out. Like, I'm really ready now. So I think as we're recording the book, so Butterfly Women will be out in 2 more days. But in very exciting times, I actually got to see a stack of the books at Sorrento Writers Festival, which is
Mm.
where I was over the weekend. And that is pretty cool seeing your book up there next to like
Mhm.
Natasha Lester's
Mhm.
huge piles,
Mhm.
stacks of 9 books, and then
Mhm.
next to Kate Granville's books. Like it's pretty cool to see
I do
that.
believe, though, and there is photo evidence that your big pile of books that you had there did actually disappear pretty much pretty quickly. So
It was pretty
that's
exciting.
great.
So yeah, I did a panel on Thursday, which was really fun. And it was the first time speaking publicly, like out in the flesh, as you would say, about the book. And yeah, it was fantastic. And yeah, people obviously were interested in the story, and it was really fun to see that book pile go down, which was so lovely. And then we just hung out. So I got my panel out of the way really early on the Thursday,
That's
and then
nice.
yeah, we just hung out for the weekend. And the highlight being having a chat about football with Helen Garner, who's my absolute idol. And I'll never, this will be a story that will carry me through my life, where she used me as a prop to demonstrate how she picks up her chooks in her backyard. And I was just astounded. I had this, literary legend standing behind me, embracing me like one of her chickens.
Picking you up like a chook. Oh, Madeline, that's gold. That is a
And
great story.
it was amazing, and we were so lucky. Like we almost didn't go. It was a party that Text Publishing had organised at an art gallery. It sounded very swank. Raiden Richardson, who's one of the debut authors from last year, he just invited all our 2025 debut crew along. So we were like, oh, are we going to be, standing out like a sore thumb because there's some pretty amazing authors who are attending. But yeah, everyone was so lovely, and Helen, including Helen Garner, who spoke to us for about 20 minutes. She showed me on her phone photos of her with the Bont, Marcus Bontempelli from the Western Bulldogs star, Bob Murphy, and yeah, we're just talking footy. And I was talking about this with Natasha Rai, our takeover host, and Natasha was saying how these types of events, it's so lovely when you are a published author, although I'm not yet, but almost, that you could just get to have normal, banal kind of conversations with these amazing legends of the literary scene, um, where you sort of once saw them as gods, you realize, oh, these people are just humans too.
Yeah, yeah. And they're still gods, but you
Yes,
realize, yes, that's just a person. They are just a
exactly.
person that's done some amazing work.
Exactly. So yeah, so that's been the highlight of my last 4 weeks, I reckon.
That's incredible. So much. It's such an exciting time, Madeline, for you.
It is. It is. I'm so pumped, and yeah, it's just hard to believe. Time just goes really quickly, doesn't it? Leading up to launch, you think it's taking a while, and then suddenly time speeds up, and
Yeah,
yeah, in
agree.
2 days, 2 days it'll be
2 days.
out.
And I'm so excited to interview you about the
Mm,
Butterfly Women and your journey to publication and how we got to this point. And I think this is a really special time to do the interview where it's imminent. Like the book hasn't quite come out. It hasn't come
no.
out yet officially. You're
Yes.
only a couple of days ahead of it, and it's yeah, it's a time that you will never be in again. Like I'm certain there'll be times
Mm,
when you have more books coming out. So, pre-publication is always going to be something for you, but as a debut author, you only get one chance at that, right?
that's right.
You can only be a debut author once, and this time sort of pre-publication of your first ever novel, it's a special, interesting kind of feeling and
Mm.
time. And anyway, I'm going to get to asking you all about your feelings very soon.
It's almost like the time before you get your first contract. I think that's a really
Mm,
special time. It's actually a really freeing time because you're writing purely for yourself, or at least you'd
mm,
hope you are. That's who you're writing.
mm,
That can kind of shift, I think, once you've signed a contract. You then start
mhm,
thinking about perhaps other people and other audiences
mm,
in mind, which
mhm,
can be quite dangerous, I think, as a creative. They
mhm.
can guide some of your decisions.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe sometimes in a good way, other
Yeah.
times maybe not so much. But I agree, it's almost like your first books before publication are like a little, not naivety, but just innocence, maybe in a way.
Yeah, and
Just
they can be amazing.
Mm,
as
yeah.
well. You're just curious and you're just exploring.
Yeah.
But then I think you have to have other things in mind when you're thinking about your second book. You're like, oh, should I stick on theme? Should I
Mm,
embed myself as a career in this particular thing, or should I try something different? Or
mm.
either there's a lot more decisions, I think, and then particularly if you start reading reviews, that can get into your head as
Don't
well,
do
which don't do it. Don't do
So
it.
hard. So hard not to do though, isn't it?
It is. It is. Well, we're
Oh,
all seeking validation, aren't we?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard not to have a look, but anyway, Madeline, I feel like I need to get into my questions that I have prepared for you
Oh, I'm excited.
for our formal interview today because I feel like we're going to go massively over time because I have so much that I want to talk to you about.
All right, let's dive in then.
All right. Well, Madeleine Cleary, congratulations on the very, very soon to be released The Butterfly Women, published
Woohoo.
by Affirm Press. I'm so excited. I was so excited when I'm holding your book at the moment.
Oh, you've got a
It,
copy. It's really
oh,
special to see you with the copy of the book, Tina.
it was felt really special to hold it. Like it's apart from being beautiful, like it was just a really special feeling. I feel like I've come along on this journey with you really closely, as do all the listeners too, you know. So it's going to be exciting when they're all holding your copy too. But you know, it's funny, like when you read my book, and it had been quite a while since you'd read a middle grade book. um, Same for me. I hadn't read historical fiction in a really long time, and it's not something that I would often gravitate to. And I
Mm.
think the reason being is because maybe the historical fictions that I were reading were just not were just not the right ones for me. I think you know some of the ones I'd read, I just maybe couldn't really connect with the characters or the
Mm.
settings. I just maybe it was a little bit slow for me as
Mm.
well. I felt, and these are just the books that I read. Um, but, you know, no one told me that there could be historical fiction quite like the Butterfly Women, Madeline. No
Oh,
one
that,
told me that I could read a historical fiction where the main characters included prostitutes and brothel owners searching for a killer in the notorious red light district of Melbourne in the 1860s. I did not know this. I am now thoroughly hooked and I want some more. I,
oh, that means so much. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. Oh,
I
I
think I
didn't.
sent you a message after like the first two chapters, something like, because I was really enjoying it, just saying, these women are badass and I am here for it.
Makes me so happy. And yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Historical fiction. Sometimes it can tend towards like that slower, immersive, and that's for, I think, readers who just want to situate themselves into a particular era and just it almost tears away your own world and you can really live and you're focusing on what you're touching and tasting and seeing and I love that kind of historical fiction as well and I do bring that like I hope that you feel really immersed in Melbourne 19th century like I want you to feel that but at the same time too I'm a person that I love a good narrative that hooks you and that brings you along with the story as well so it's not just about positioning yourself as a reader, but it's also about going along with the characters.
Mm.
That for
Well, it
me.
definitely had all of that. It had, you know, the strong characters and the strong narrative. And it's funny, one of the things I was going to say about it was that I definitely the setting was so rich and vivid and real, and I could absolutely, you know, at times feel like I could see it and smell it and feel it,
Mhm.
which sometimes is a little bit uncomfortable
Yes,
in
that's
the
right.
back
The
alleys of
smell,
the
Melbourne.
red light district. But no, it was incredible and it was very immersive and you could tell.
Oh,
So yeah, just rich. The characters were rich and real and enjoyable, and it was an incredible journey.
thank
I feel
you.
very honoured. You know what I love about it, apart from the beautiful, I mean, apart from the story, but the actual book and the
Yeah.
incredible cover with this dark red bodice and the beautiful butterflies. And even inside the cover, you've got like end pages like they do in, you know, picture books sometimes, these gorgeous butterfly end pages. And I love the tagline on the front that says, "Danger lurks in this house of ill repute."
So there is a story behind that. I actually didn't write the tagline. That came from my publisher, and I was sitting in in the office at a firm press with my publisher, and she showed me the cover on her laptop. And she's like, look what I managed to sneak onto the cover. And it's
Hmm.
those words,
Hmm.
repute. We just love that old language. Doesn't it just sound fabulous? House
It
of
does. Well, I'm so glad that they snuck it on there, because I mean, if that doesn't get you in, I don't know what does. But
I
that's what publishers are good
know.
for, aren't they? With those taglines.
They are, they are. And the cover designer, Nada Bakovic, she did an incredible job. It went through a series. So they actually had another cover designer working on it for a few months. And they just together collectively, they couldn't come to a cover that they wanted.
Mhm.
And so they ended up going to Nada, and that was the first cover she delivered after
Mm.
reading the book and delivering the brief. So,
Mm.
and as soon as they saw it, they were like, "Yep, that's it." So,
Mhm.
and I felt that way too when I saw it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. But I also do love the quote from Ellie Parker on the back.
Yes, the a nestle. What is it? Oh, you have to.
It says, it says, rich and vivid, these characters will pick up their skirts and
Yeah.
nestle into your heart.
Yes.
Ellie, you delivered on that one.
Amazing. It's so clever. When I saw that, I was like, oh, brilliant, brilliant.
Yes,
I'm so
very
glad it
good.
made it onto the cover. Like
Mm.
it's on the back, but it's on the cover.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just a really great quote for that sums up the book. Um, but enough of me talking about the book. Madeline, I ask all my guests this. You're not going to get away with it. Can you give us your one-liner?
Okay, one liner or a pitch?
Mm. Have you
You
got?
can
I'm going
decide.
to
I can
say
do it in
one.
a one line.
Okay, go.
Okay, so The Butterfly Women is a historical romp and a gritty murder mystery retelling untold women's stories amidst a Jack the Ripper style murder in Melbourne 1860s.
Yeah, nice.
That,
I
yeah,
like
I
it.
got to perfect that a little bit, I think.
No, that was good. I like that. I think that sums it up really well. It makes it sound exciting, and
Yeah, and Jack the Ripper kind of adds a little
mm,
bit of, intrigue because it is both that, I think. Like
it's both. Yeah.
it's the historical retelling, but it's also got that it's a bit gritty and a bit dark. And I didn't quite realize how dark it was until people started coming back to me after reading it, going, "It's pretty
Mm,
dark, Madeline." Like I mean, there's a lot of light and there's a lot of fun and
mm,
there's a lot of joy, and it's set in a high class brothel, and
mm,
there's there's lots of like interesting, intriguing kind of things. But I think as well, yeah, there are a few dark moments in there. And
mm,
that's what I wanted to show is both the light and the dark in that time, because I didn't want to glamorize prostitution and make
mm,
it like a light, frothy tale about women, you know, earning money and buying lots of beautiful silk dresses and that, I mean they did do that, but there was also this darker side as
mm.
well. Hmm.
No, I think it's perfectly done. But yeah, and yeah, maybe dark. I don't mind a bit of dark in my in the books that I read though. So no,
Yeah, I'm
so
not a cozy crime person, I've realized, I think. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it says, on your blurb on the back, it says lush, dark, and meticulously
There you
researched.
go. Trigger warning. So
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
a warning.
but it's lush as well as dark. So,
It's a
it
great word,
balances it
actually.
out.
Credit Ruby Ashfield for
Oh.
that
Ah.
description. Definitely not me.
But Madeline, this tale that you have written here hasn't completely come out of nowhere, has it? Like this
Mm.
is a very, very exciting, fun tale that I love. Can you tell us about your inspiration for the book and where it all
Yes,
started? It's a great story.
absolutely. So it's all came about in about 2014. So it's over 10 years ago now. And my dad, he was connected with a woman on ancestry.com, a distant relative. And she wrote a little message to dad on this platform and said, "Oh, Phil, my dad's name, do you know that you're related to the infamous Irish Cleary family of early Melbourne?" And dad said, "No, but please do tell." And she provided a few pages of research that she'd done, which linked us to direct descendants of a woman called Catherine Cleary. And she was my great 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 grandmother. And she was also a brothel. She owned and lived in a brothel in that little long red light district in Melbourne. So This, of course, was really exciting. It's a secret that had been buried for so many years in our family. And I think a lot of families have those types of secrets, those ancestors that they want to forget. But now there's more interest in looking back and reflecting on your family and where you've come from. And so this really sparked my dad to dig further. And I think back in 2014, I was pretty young still. I was in my early 20s, and I remember dad telling me about it. I remember him sending me lots of articles. I remember asking lots of questions. And I did think at that time it would be fantastic to read a book about these women um, in this particular era. And so I did a lot of Googling. I was like Googling fiction books just to try and see if there was anything, because fiction's always been something that I loved, and I couldn't see anything written about that time. And so I thought, well, maybe I can write this. So
What
yeah,
a,
so
yes, you would be the perfect person to write that. And so had you been writing then up until that
mm,
point? Are you writing?
so I've been working as a bookseller. I was working as a bookseller then, and this was during uni. I was studying international relations. I've always been a massive reader, and I think most writers are, aren't they?
Mhm.
You know, reading, having weekly trips to the library where I max out my library card, and I'd be spending all weekend in bed till 11 p.m. until mum dragged me out to have a shower. I wouldn't eat anything until then, and she'd just be like, "Come on." But my mum was a massive encourager, I think, of my reading. When it came to writing, yeah, I mean, I was writing stories from, a young age. I still got them too. Mum kept them all in like a big box. So I've got these stories. There's one about like a dog. I think it's called something like Fire Rescue or something, and it's about a dog that rescues a cat from a burning house. And I've drawn the
It's the original
illustration.
Paw Patrol.
It
You're
is. It
you're onto
is.
something.
I reckon I was. And I've even got like a title page on the inside of the
Oh,
book.
bless.
So I
Mhm.
reckon like I was a bit of a nerd, and I did a blurb and everything. So, and mum got it all printed and bound at office work. So I've got a few of these stories. So I was always writing as a kid. And then I think it was about 2016. And so this is a couple of years after we discovered about Catherine. And well, actually, no, in 2014, we went overseas for a year, and I thought, oh, my husband's really into writing. And he kind of gave me that, I think, the confidence to be able to say, maybe I can give it a go. And so I started writing this really crappy young adult novel, because that's what I was reading. I was reading a lot of that. I mean, I'm a pretty wide reader, but at the time I was early 20s, and it was awful. I wrote 30,000 words and I never picked it back up, and I never want to look at that again. And then 2016, I got a job in Canberra, so we moved into state. So I was in my mid 20s. I was working, and you might feel this as well. I was doing my normal day job, and I was just like, and people, I was talking with some other public servants, and it's totally fine to be a career public servant if you're happy with that. But they're like, oh, you moved to Canberra 45 years later. This is going to be a life. I moved to Canberra thinking I'd only be here for a year, and then look at me. And I just thought, oh my God, is this all there is in life? Like, is this it?
Mm.
And I like my job. I have a great job. I
Mm.
really enjoy it, but it didn't tap into that creative side of me that I really liked. So then I went to, sorry, I'm like going on a long tangent, but we went to a book talk in Sydney. It was with an author, your author, Maria Snyder. She's a fantasy writer that I really liked. And Kate Forsyth, great Australian writer, is interviewing her. And I was talking with Kate after the event, and Kate asked me, we were talking about books and reading and everything. And she's like, oh, do you write? And I was like, hmm, do I write? I wish I could say yes
Mm.
to at that time. That would bring me a lot of joy. And so I said, oh no, because I'm worried it would cut into my reading time. And she's sort of like, oh well, if you write if you want to write, like it's about where you prioritize your time. So driving back from Sydney, I was like, okay, I'm going to start writing from now. Every day I'm going to write. And I did. I pretty much wrote every day until the Butterfly Women draft was done in 2022. I wrote 3 novels before the Butterfly Women. A lot of people say that they signed up to a course or went back to uni. For me, I spent 4 years writing every day, doing my practice, doing my 10,000 hours before I even considered writing a book like The Butterfly Women. And those 3 novels, again, will stay in the drawer.
Mhm.
And at not one point did I ever consider them for ready for publication. I knew that they were not publication ready at all. And so I just wrote them, put them down, wrote them, put them down. And I think that helped me work out how to structure a story and tell a story. And I feel like as well, like I didn't do any courses, but because I was such a big reader, I feel like I knew how to tell a story,
Yeah.
how to structure a story.
Mhm.
And so I felt like I had the elements, but I just needed the right story to tell, which was in the end, The Butterfly Women.
Yeah. That is an incredible journey. And so many questions I have for you on all of that.
I can see you're writing.
I write and I doodle and that's what I do. And I try to maintain eye contact at the same time and scribble off to the side. It's my interview style. Um, Madeline, so yeah, so getting back to the like you said, all of that as you I guess writing and learning how to write to get to that point with the Butterfly Women. And you were saying about obviously your history and researching about your ancestors.
Mm.
And your dad he played a big role in this. The whole, I mean, he was the one that came to you with all the information in the first place. And I
Mm.
can imagine, and these are his, direct ancestors. I can imagine how proud he is of you and this book and the story being out there. How did he feel when he held the book for the first time? How did you feel when you could give it to
Um,
him?
Yeah, this is a really funny story, and I'm sure my parents are listening to this. I just got my author copies. I got the big box, and I sort of posted up on social media. And Dad messaged, and I think there's a moment you have when you open up your own copies, and you're like, "These are mine, and I'm just gonna hold them." And like they're like your little like babies, and you're like,
Hmm.
"I will protect these copies with my." And Dad messaged me and he goes, "Oh, when can I get a copy?" Like not like, "Oh, how do you feel like you got your copy?" It's like, "When can I get one?" And I was like, "Dad, literally, you'll be able to go to Sorrento in like 4 days and you'll be able to get a copy." And I'm like, "You're not getting one. You're not getting one." And then the next day, my husband's like, "That was really mean of you." And I'm like, "Yeah, it really was mean." So I it's so funny, like all the things you've got. It's like a book pre-launch brain with
Mm.
yours. You go a bit
Hmm.
wild. And so the next day, I went and dropped in a copy to Dad, and I didn't tell him I was coming. I just rocked up, and of course he's gardening. And so I come up and I'm like, "Dad, Dad," and I had a little bag, and I said, "I've got a gift for you." He's like, "What's this?" And I said, "Well, open it up." He's like, "Oh, my hands are dirty." They're full of like dirt. I said, "Well, it's the book." And he's like, "Oh," he's like, "But I can't touch it because."
Oh,
And
Dad.
so he kind of like, I got it out for him and he like clasped it in his arms.
Oh,
And then, yeah, that was really lovely. And so Mum's like, "All right, we have to take family photos." And I felt like it was like family photos with like a newborn. It
yeah,
was like my dad, me, and like I'm cradling
yeah.
the book.
Oh,
But no, he is very, very proud and very excited for these like our stories
yeah.
to be told.
Yeah. Well, it's a significant moment, isn't it? Even if it wasn't something related to your ancestry,
That's right.
having a book published is pretty incredible. But I know what you mean about the books, and because you only get, X amount of copies. It's not a lot for
Yeah.
yourself. And I know with mine, I've ended up, like I've used some like as giveaways, or
Yes.
I've definitely given them out to some people, and then you end up with, I want to keep one for myself as well. Don't want that
You
one
have
to
to
go.
keep one from the box, I think, because I think that's pretty special.
Yeah, yeah,
The
that's
first
right.
copies, the first
Yeah.
ones. Because
So
I
they
know
do
you can go
disappear
and
pretty
buy
pretty
your own.
quickly.
You can buy your own, of course, from back from
Yes.
the publisher, but it's something very
Yes, that's
special
right.
about the first box.
I agree. I think so. I think so. So, yes, it is. I can see where your initial thoughts were there, Madeline. I have to say, even with my mum, I was kind of like, I'm going to give you one and you're just going to put it on your shelf. It's just going to sit there.
That's
You
right.
can
I'm like,
just, you can have a look whenever you want.
that's right. You can buy it. You can buy it, Dad. Go on. Buy a few copies.
Big dub. Off you go. Yeah, no. Oh, that is pretty funny. Oh, so Madeline, the Butterfly Women, it's multiple points of view, written from multiple points of
Yes.
view, which I loved because it was a great way to get to know the characters. And they are so, different. They've got various backgrounds and they've got different goals and personal struggles. But the one thing I think that they all had in common was that they were incredibly strong and brave,
Mm.
which I
Mm.
think uh, has a lot of you in each one of them, doesn't
Oh,
it?
that's very kind. I could
Which
definitely be an Irish sex worker, I reckon.
Well, you
Or
are
a,
related to them, so there
or
definitely is a lot
a
of you actually, or of them in you, really, isn't there? So, um, but which one do you think is the most like you, and
Mm.
why?
That's a good question, Tina. Well, Pat and I were actually talking about this too, and it's an interesting one. Um, I think I think I'm probably a mixture of Joanna Callahan, who's the Irish sex worker, and Harriet Gardner, who's um, she's a bit more of that sort of upper class. She's just arrived to the continent. Her brother is the police magistrate, so she has a certain sort of level in society. The expectation is that she'll marry and be respectable and be a good colonial wife. But she's wants to do something a bit different and she follows her she's very curious. And I think I relate to that because I have a lot of um, I suppose for me, I've actually never wanted children, and that's a bit of a personal thing to say, but I love kids. Like I have wonderful nieces, but following that path of getting married and having children has never been something that I've desired. So I've always tried to do something different. I've always been curious about doing different things. So I think that part of Harriet aligns to me. And then she is though a little bit she's I suppose has a lot of anxiety and is afraid, and I would say that's probably not as much me. I'm happy to put myself out there and talk to anyone, and I think that's Joanna. So Joanna is a someone who's a bit more gregarious. She's funny. I wouldn't say I'm a funny person, but she's certainly funny and kind of enigmatic. And I mean, she has those qualities that I would really like to be, that person that can just walk into a room and has that presence about her, even though she comes from a background where she's a illiterate Irish migrant who's arrived penniless without family. She's found it difficult to hold down jobs, and then she's given an opportunity. So she's much more alike to my ancestors, who did arrive in Australia as migrants from Limerick in sort of 1830s, and then eventually found their way to Melbourne. So she's, yeah, very much more alike. But the difference between Joanna and my family is that Joanna had this opportunity to work at this high class brothel, whereas my family, it appears, were much more on the streets, and they had to really struggle to survive. Mm.
Hi, my name's Sally Gould and I'm the author of the memoir Frog, The Secret Diary of a Paramedic with Simon & Schuster. I work as an intensive care paramedic and have been in this dream job of mine for 14 years now. When I first started as a naive student ride-along, I journaled all of my experiences as I was both completely overwhelmed and in awe watching the paramedics in action. It was from these journals that Frog grew. In it, I take readers on the wild ride as I go from that nervous spectator to being in the treat seat myself as a paramedic. I want to open the doors on what life as a paramedic is really like. I share the hilarious, the gory, the frustrating and the magical jobs. But beyond that, the book is about how this career inevitably shapes identity and builds resilience. I can't wait for people to connect with my story. Frog is out now and available as a book, ebook, and an audiobook that I've narrated myself. Thanks so much for your support so far, and thanks Madeline and Tina for inviting me to pop onto the podcast.
How did you learn about like I said, I don't write historical fiction, so it blows my mind how much research must go into this. And
Yeah.
what did you do to, because like I said, when I read it, it really does feel like you're there, and it's so you've just managed to show it on the page so incredibly well. How did you, yeah, do the research? Did you find it hard? How long did it take? And
So yeah, the research stuff, I mean, other than what my dad did, so I did my own research, of course, and I started that in about 2018.
mm,
And I've always pretty much been researching since then. I find it a continual process. I probably did a couple of years of research before I even started the writing. I don't know if I have the patience to do that now. So it'll be interesting to see for book two how I would approach that.
were you researching for the writing, or were you just researching because you were like, I'm going to write this one day, or were you researching just for the enjoyment of it?
So back in 2018, I was at an exhibition at the National Library, and I came and I had this idea for a story set in that time in Melbourne, but I didn't have the characters. But then they came to me during this exhibition. I was looking at a painting called A Flight of Fair Game by Alfred de Cote, and you can look it up. It's on the National Library of Australia's website. And it's this image of these women who were grown butterfly wings and were flying from the UK or England to Van Diemen's Land. So this is back in the 1830s. And it was all about how, like, transformation, how they perceived there would be great opportunities for them. And these are people from the poorhouses, from the asylums. So they're not your upper class women, they're people who are working class. And I saw that and I just thought, the Butterfly Women, the title came to me in a second. I was like, that's the title. And then the characters of Mary and Catherine, who are Mary Jenkins. She's a police constable. She dresses up as her husband and goes on his rounds, and she's based on an actual character, a person in history. And Madame Laurent, the brothel madam, who they're both very good friends. And so those two women came to me, and then it started happening after that. So when I had those characters, I then thought, okay, well, it's time to do some more research. I'd done a little bit just out of interest to understand early colonial Melbourne, because I think my question was always, what were the circumstances that my family were in? Why would they turn to prostitution? And some of the stories were pretty grim. Like, the way we were finding these stories, it's not because we had their journals. These are Irish women who were illiterate. We had the newspaper articles that detailed they're really detailed accounts of their court cases. And at the time, the newspaper articles, they had this kind of dry wit about them as well. Like, they had a bit of a flair in their writing, and they would actually record exactly the kinds of things that my ancestors were saying directly, like
Oh,
direct
wow.
quotes. So that kind of gave you a bit of insight. And we had about 100 pages or something of these articles that Dad had found. So that gave us a bit of an insight. So yeah, we're trying to understand the circumstances. So then I started doing a lot of research at the National Library in Canberra, and had access to basically the entire Australian collection, which was amazing. Of course, there's Trove, which is the online digitised newspaper resource, and it's free in Australia. So sometimes I would just go to a certain day in 1863 and look at the age and see what's on the front page, just to get, some vibes about, like, what was happening at the time, what were some of the things that people were talking about. That's when I saw, like, the Melbourne Cup, which I didn't know was so early, and which is the horse race for those who don't know, horse race in Melbourne, big deal. But yeah, like, I saw that they were talking about the Melbourne Cup. I was like, oh great, well, we'll have to have a scene about the Melbourne Cup then. Like, just like things like that, you sort of pick up things. So I was doing a lot of research. I'd done too much. I think I'd done too much, and I hit a point where I'm like, I have to start writing. So I did. And I wrote 30,000 words. 30,000 words seems to be a number that I get to.
It's your,
And I
your spot, yeah.
and I
You could
stopped.
probably write 30. Yeah, do you feel like the first 30,000 maybe just come really easily, and then it's at that point? maybe it's
I threw them
you
all
think
away.
about it a bit
So
more. Oh, right, okay.
yeah, yep, yep.
So you just had a little practice, that's all.
Had a practice, and
Hmm.
I realized the characters weren't even in Melbourne for those first 30,000. It was their journey on the boat to Melbourne.
Oh, interesting. But you know what? I don't think that's uncommon for people to
Mm,
do. Maybe not 30,000, but because a lot of the time, you hear that advice about writing where oftentimes the publisher or the editor or somebody that's giving their professional feedback says you've just started your story in the wrong spot and
that's
you've
right.
started it too soon. Get rid of
Yep,
your first, in your case, 30,000, or first couple of chapters, even just one chapter, two chapters, three chapters, first third, even because you've started it too soon. You need to start it. Yeah. And
exactly. And
yeah,
that's what I'd done. I'd started
yeah.
it too soon. And I was like, this is a book about Melbourne.
Mm.
Why have I got 30,000 words on a boat?
But you needed that, do you think? You need that because you're getting to learn the characters, you're getting to,
Absolutely.
you're putting everything together in your mind. And some people use that as a bit of a tool before they start writing. Maybe they've done that before and they realize that it's about creating your characters and doing all those things kind of off the page somewhere else, creating, settings and scenes and sayings and things. So you would have done that in that first
That's right.
30,000. You got to know them really well.
Well, I got to know the friendship between
Mm,
Mary and Catherine, two of the main characters, and I that really, yeah, it was definitely helpful. But it is really so unmotivating when you
mm,
realize that because
mm,
you're like, I have put in so much time. You don't see the broader perspective
mm.
when you're in that. You just
Yeah.
go, I have put in so much time and this has all gone away. So
Mm,
in hindsight, I go, yes, that was really helpful. But when
mm.
you're in the
At the
midst
moment,
of it,
no,
it's not helpful at all.
no.
And so I actually put the manuscript down. That was back in 2019. Didn't pick it up again until 2022.
Mm. That's a nice break. That's another little bit of writing advice, isn't it? To put it away. Sometimes not for 3 years, but you know,
But
um,
I think it goes down to, and this is something that we've talked about before, and Irma, episode with Irma God was talking about finding the heat in your work.
mhm,
And I think that's something that Charlotte Wood has said before about finding the heat. And
mm,
for me, I lost the heat in that
mhm,
30,000 words. And I didn't know where to find it again. And it wasn't until, and sometimes it just takes something else to spark and find that heat again. And for me, it coincided with the release of a non-fiction book called The Women of Little Lon by a historian, Barbara Mitchinton. And I read that book. I was living in China as well. I was overseas and I was really missing home. I was really missing Melbourne. I hadn't been to Melbourne for 3 years.
mm,
And this book is my love letter to Melbourne.
mhm.
It always has been and always will be. I was living in Canberra, but still thinking about Melbourne. And then I was overseas and I couldn't leave the country and I was thinking about Melbourne.
Yeah.
And so reading this book really helped spark and help me find the heat. And
Mhm,
that's where I found Joanna and Harriet, the two other main characters in the book after that. So I had my Mary and Catherine already,
mhm,
and I found Joanna and Harriet. And I realized this was actually a book with four perspectives.
mhm,
And that changed everything. It
mm.
broke through, and I found that heat again.
That's an incredible story. And I feel like so many things came into play there, like you being away for 3 years and yearning for Melbourne, which has made you, that's a bit of your heat there, right? Underlying and
Mhm.
wanting to come to get out, and then finding that book and which was sort of maybe I was gonna say easing your homesickness or maybe making it worse, but
Yeah.
yeah, where you found those other two characters. So it's all just and had you have pushed through, had you have gone, no, I've come this far, like
Mm.
3 years earlier, just thought, I've come this far, I'm just going to keep going. Because sometimes we do, like maybe
Yes, you
push.
trudge.
Yeah, we push through for whatever reason. And sometimes it really just needs a bit of space. And then
Mhm.
in your case, just like you said, finding the heat. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and I
That's,
think it's okay to to put something down if it's not working, if you don't have the heat, if you're not feeling that joy in, and sometimes it's for me, and I'm always a big believer, perhaps it's a little like woo-woo of me, but I feel sometimes that the story, you're waiting for the story to come to you.
Mhm, mhm,
And sometimes it takes time for the story to work itself out. And for me, it's like the characters telling the story to me, and I've just got to listen and be receptive, I suppose, to the outside world and things like going to an art exhibition and seeing that painting. That's what inspired the title. That's what how Mary and Catherine came to me. Things like reading non-fiction books. I'm a big fiction reader. I'd also like to dabble in non-fiction. Reading something that sparks. You don't know what's around the corner, but you've got to be open to it and receptive.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, just trying to find those opportunities, being outside in the outside world, and it really
Yes,
could be, like you said, going to art galleries and exhibitions and things, or sometimes it can just be walking the dog around the corner and seeing an
exactly.
interaction or seeing, overhearing a conversation.
Exactly. It could be
Absolutely.
music. It could
Yep.
be, yeah, it could be something just, yeah, like you said, a conversation and you have that, oh, light bulb
Mm,
moment. It's this
mm,
beautiful moment and
mm.
it feels like the whole world is sparkly. That's what it
Yes.
felt like to me after
Mm,
reading that book by Barbara Minchinton.
yep.
And I contacted her as soon as I read it. And I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. I didn't tell her I was writing a book because, you don't really, as a day emerging writer, you don't tell people you're writing a book.
Mm.
You keep that to yourself. I didn't even tell my parents. Well, my parents knew I had been thinking about it, but they didn't know I was writing it. And yeah, and I just said thank you. And then we have had this back and forth lovely email trail since
Mm.
2022. And
That's
Barb
special.
actually read an early draft of the Butterfly Women and endorsed it, which meant the world to me. So
Mm.
yeah,
That's
it's all
special.
come back around.
It
And
has.
she's attending the launch as well
Oh,
in Melbourne next week. And
oh my gosh, that's incredible. That's such a beautiful story.
it's very special. So yeah, and it's interesting when you find the heat, I think the writing comes quickly. Like
Mm,
probably, and this is quick for me. I know Tina,
mm,
you're a rapid writer for your zero draft, but for me, I had a first draft in about 9 months,
mm,
which I was working overseas full time. I was doing really long hours and,
mm.
pretty busy on weekends. So I felt like that was pretty good. And
That is
also
that is really
dense
good.
research too. You're dealing
Dense
with a lot of
research,
dense research.
absolutely. Yeah. And it's a full, how many pages is it? How many words is it actually?
Well, when I finished the first draft, it was only 82,000 and it's
Okay.
gotten up to about 94, I reckon
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
that's considerable.
it is considerable. Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And then I suppose like once I had that draft, that first draft, I did something like 15 edits. Like I didn't
Mm,
just write the
mm.
draft and then go, okay, this is ready for publication now.
Yeah.
Not at
No,
all.
good, good. Another top tip. Do not just send it out yet.
Mm-mm.
It's not ready for publication. So it's 2022, you've picked it back up, you've had your inspiration, you've found the heat, and you have sensibly decided this is not ready for publication. I'm going to edit
Mm.
15 times. Then what happens, Madeline? How do we get from there to here, 2 days before your publication date?
Okay, so I will just backtrack a little because this is a fun story. I was really close to finishing the first draft, and I was about to leave China and come back to Canberra, end of my posting. And a week beforehand, I did my final trip. I was traveling on my own. My husband was already back in Australia, and I decided to go on a bike trip with my friend in the hills, in the mountains, in like close to Tibet. And I fell off my bike and I fractured my jaw in three places and
Oh
I
my
broke like
gosh.
6 teeth.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, I remember like seeing my, oh, this is like trigger for people, seeing my teeth on the road. I'm like, oh, I've really, really effed up here. Really, really effed up. Middle of nowhere, went to the Chinese hospital, pretty rough.
Mhm,
Saw lots of interesting things. It was
mhm,
COVID too. They
mm.
kept asking me, when was your last COVID test? And I was like, kept showing them all my codes, 24 hours, because you had to get a PCR test every 24
Oh my
hours
gosh.
there.
Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah, I ended up coming back to Melbourne. So I was originally going to go back to Canberra, but because I was so badly injured, I had to wait for a flight for a week because there was no flights
Oh my
out.
gosh.
Left posting a week early. So I think it was 2 weeks out and then, yeah, left posting a week early. I had to go into work, couldn't speak. My lovely colleague read out my farewell speech to all the staff.
Oh,
I couldn't
Madeline.
talk. There's all these photos of me with all the staff. They all wanted to have photos with me. Like And I just sat there in the middle of the room, like, couldn't smile,
Like
just all,
swollen face.
yeah,
Oh
and
my
all
God.
injured. And they're just, yeah, it was wild. And so I had to travel on my own back to China, back to Australia, had 2 40-kilo bags with me. Like it was just, yeah, anyway. So I got home and yeah, I spoke with my husband and we thought it was actually better for me to go back to Melbourne. My parents will be home all the time so they can help care for me and stuff.
Mm.
And so I was off work and I was like, oh my God, I'm so bored. Like I hate being on sick leave. Like I get
Yeah.
so bored. I was like, well, I may as well just finish the novel. Like I can't work. I was in between jobs. Like what was I going to do? And so I was like, well, I may as well just finish the book. So I did. So I finished it on my parents' couch in
Mm.
Melbourne,
Nice.
which I think was really special.
That is.
It's a book that started in Canberra, went to China, finished in Melbourne, which
Hmm.
was really nice
Hmm.
with my parents.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I finished that draft, did all the edits on it, and that was really important. It took me, I probably spent 6 months editing, I would say. So then it was about March in 2023. And I did a course with the Australian Society of Authors. I was doing a few courses with them. They're really helpful. So I really recommend those. Just everything from like editing to writing, the industry. I did one called Pitch Perfect, which is all about how to pitch your work to publishers.
Hmm.
And I knew nothing about the industry. I knew nothing about publishing. I knew no authors. I was an absolute nobody. I had no social media. I was just a no one. And so I was coming from it from the scratch. And I did some research though into the publishers. And I thought, because I wanted to make sure I was pitching to the right ones. And so for this book, very Melbourne book, Australian story, needs a lot of love, I think. So I pitched it to two smaller to mid-sized publishers. And as part of the ASA, Australian Society of Authors, they do something called literary speed dating. So the Pitch Perfect course leads up to that. And you get 3 minutes to pitch your work over Zoom to a publisher. You can choose two publishers only or agents. So you can pitch to agents or publishers. I knew nothing about agents or publishers. I was like, well, why would I get an agent when I can just pitch to a publisher?
Yeah.
Now I know, oh, sometimes it can be more
They do
strategic.
other things, yes.
Yeah. And now I have an agent as well.
Yes.
So, just I came at it from the other angle.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I had done my research, and so one of the publishers was Ruby Ashby Orr from Affirm Press, and I loved Pip Williams. I watched all the interviews that Ruby had done, listened to any podcasts that she'd done so I could get a sense of who she is. I thought, oh, I reckon she'll like this. And they've done things like Sarah Pennar's Lost Apothecary and the natural history of, I can't remember the name of it. But anyway, lots of kind of Melbourne books. So I remember I was working from home and I was so nervous, so anxious, like sweating bullets.
Yeah.
And
had you prepared a pitch? Like, did you like have your words down? Yeah.
I had my words to a T. It was finishing at 2 minutes and 45.
Oh, nice.
And I'm a former drama student. So I was like, I got my performance down pat. And I had the words there, but I knew them off by heart anyway.
Yeah.
And at the end, Ruby said that was a fantastic pitch.
Yeah.
And she said, I want to know more about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like ASA were like, okay, your 3 minutes are done. And it was like, click. That's it. That's all you get.
Yeah.
And
that's rough.
I remember just like jumping up in the air.
Yeah.
Like it was just good to have Ruby say, oh, we really like the pitch.
Yeah.
So both publishers ended up a week later, you find out if they want to read the manuscript. So both publishers requested it, which was brilliant. And so then you get an email saying, if you haven't heard anything in 3 months, follow up. But otherwise, don't follow up before 3 months.
Yeah.
And I would highly recommend everybody, even if it's tempting, do not just follow whatever they've told you. Do not follow up. And so I didn't. 3 months ticked by. And do you want me to tell you the story?
Please,
Yeah.
yes.
So 3 months ticked by. And at this stage, I was feeling pretty crap.
It's such a strange feeling, isn't it, to go from, especially when those when someone like ASA, or I know there's lots of other organizations that do these Zoom calls with editors and publishers and agents, and they have control of when the call finishes. Because
Yes.
it could be going really good, even if it's going really bad, or you just have no idea and then it just disappears and that's it, all gone. You can't ask a follow-up
That's it.
question.
That's right. That's
So,
right.
yeah, being
And
prepared for it.
the other one went really well too. And she actually,
Mm,
the publisher there did ask a question. She asked about the research, like how accurate it is, and
mm,
and I was like, okay, this is good. I'm getting, but you don't get much.
yes.
You don't
Yeah.
get much sort of
3 minutes
sense.
as
3 minutes.
well.
That's
Gosh,
it.
it's so. And then to go from hearing absolutely nothing for 3 months. Yeah, I can
3 months.
understand
And
it's
I'd been entering like in the interim, and maybe this is a good top tip. I hadn't been just sitting around. I'd actually been doing short fiction, so I'd been
yeah.
writing a lot of short stories from as
Mm-hmm.
soon as I finished the manuscript to then. And I absolutely love writing short stories. I just had
Mm.
all this inspiration,
Yep.
creativity, and I'd entered a few
Yeah.
competitions, had a lot of rejections,
Mm,
but also had a few like little nibbles. Like I think I
mm,
mentioned on a previous episode, I won $500
mm.
on a short story competition. And I was like, oh, and that's the first time I'd ever been paid for my
Yeah.
writing. So just having that little bit of validation is good. And I
Mm,
remember I was at the Sydney Writers Festival as just an attendee, and I'd had a few rejections and I was feeling pretty down. It had been 3 months since the publishers had requested the manuscript, and it had been over 3 months now, and I hadn't
yeah.
followed up. And I was thinking to myself, I think they would have I think they
Mm,
would have let me know by now if they're
mm,
interested. Like they would have.
yeah.
Anyway, that is a lie. Do
Mm,
not ever believe that. They are
mm.
just really, really busy.
I
So
was
if you
just
haven't
going to
heard
say,
anything, that's actually good.
yeah, yeah.
That's good. And so
Mm,
I was sitting at the Sydney Writers Festival and having a drink, kind of wallowing. And then I got like the word from the Stringy Bark short story competition that I'd been like longlisted for that.
mm,
And it was going into a publication. And I was like, oh, just I think having a few short story
yeah.
things in the works gives you a little bit of fun
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So I would highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I was at work in the office and I was on a Teams call, and I my phone was just kind of sitting next to me. And I don't normally check my phone at work, but for some reason it kind of flashed up and a name flashed up. And it was one of the publishers who I'd pitched to. And I was in this Teams call, and it was actually with like Prime Minister and Cabinet. And like, so it was a pretty serious meeting, and I was briefing on things. And I just happened to glance down and I was like, oh, well, I'll have a quick sneaky peek. And I was looking for the words unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like, thank you
Just
for
trying to get the tone. Yeah.
yeah, trying to get the tone. And like I think the start of it was like, thank you so much for your submission of the butterfly women. We really apologize that it's taken so long to get back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, unfortunately, it was like, oh, we really enjoyed the manuscript, the first 100 pages you sent through. Can you send through the full?
Mm.
And I was like,
Prime Minister and Cabinet, I have to go now.
yeah, I know, literally. I would just, my eyes were just like, oh my gosh. And then they're like, oh, Madeline, what do you think about this thing? And I was like, oh yeah, yeah. Anyway, so
Back to reality.
oh,
Yeah.
crazy. So I raced home, sent it through, and then she came back to me straight away and she's like, thanks so much. We'll be in, it was June in 2023. She's
Yeah.
like, if you don't hear from us by the end of the year,
Oh,
let us know.
whew,
So
gosh.
6 months, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So I
Oh,
kind
the
of felt a
wait.
bit, I was like, okay, no, this is good, but
It's good
also,
to know, though, isn't it, too? Like, it
yes,
sounds like a lot, but also, thank you for letting me know. I will not be checking my inbox every 3 seconds, thinking that you're going to get back to me in half a day, which we all do when we know that's not reality.
exactly. 6 months. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay, all
good.
right,
Okay.
I'll just, yeah. So then the good thing is like, if you've got a bit of interest, the other thing that you should do is also let any of the other publishers or agents know if you're getting some interest. So I had submitted to another independent publisher.
Mhm.
And to a firm, obviously, who picked me up. And so I wrote to Ruby and I wrote to this other publisher, and I was like, oh, this other publisher's, shown some interest. Ruby actually came back to me a few days later and she's like, I haven't had a chance to dive in, but thanks for the reminder. I'll come back to you. And I was like, okay, so what, in 6 months? I was like,
Mm.
Didn't
Yeah.
really expect
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And then the next day she came back. She's like, I've dived into the manuscript. I am absolutely loving this.
Mhm.
Can we set up a Zoom call on Monday to talk
Wow.
about it?
Yeah.
And I was like, holy moly, like dream publisher here.
Yeah.
Ruby at a firm. I was like, oh my God. And so this is the moment where you just go, oh, okay, things are moving.
Yeah.
And so I went back to that first one that said, oh, it's going to be 6 months. And she's like, right, okay, we're going to get onto this now.
So good having that little bit of leverage.
Leverage. And then the third one came back and they're
Ah,
like, oh, yeah, we're really liking this. Can you send the full thing through? And I was like, I didn't know what was
all
happening.
of a
My life
sudden.
just felt really weird. And this is
Wow.
the moment for everyone listening.
Yeah.
If this happens to you, this is when you go to get an agent. Don't do it yourself. Highly recommend getting an agent here. I did not, and I found it tricky to navigate. It was a difficult
Well, you're
thing.
essentially acting as an agent would in that situation,
Mm-hmm.
who would then say, leave it to me, I will take them all on, and then liaise with all of them and negotiate with all of them. And that's a very hard thing to do as an author, especially as a debut.
Very, very tricky, and especially as someone who knows nothing about the industry. I was messaging, I had some good friends who worked in the industry, who had worked in book selling days. So I was getting their advice, and their advice was get an agent.
Yeah.
I didn't listen.
Which also feels incredibly hard. It is also incredibly hard. And especially, like you said, not knowing anything about the industry. Who do you go to? Where do you start? So,
That's right. It's tough.
Yeah.
But again, you have to do what's right. And in the time, I felt like it was right. And do you know what? Like I was so lucky because like I was able to leverage a few things
Yeah.
as well. So, consider things like rising royalties. It's something that we, should be actually part of contracts. And what I mean by that is when you hit a certain sale level, like you've sold a volume, that you start getting higher royalties off that because that benefits both you and the publisher. If you're selling that many copies, you're making money.
Yeah.
So there are things that you can include, and the ASA does provide that on their websites and things that you can leverage. So yeah, I was able to do some things like that. I'm sure it's not a faux pas to talk about things, but these are just some of the things to think about.
Yeah.
I had that Zoom call with Ruby, and it was the best phone call I've ever had in my life. We talked about the story, like I'm like, oh, this is just made up in my head, and suddenly I'm talking with someone really important about it. That felt really surreal.
Yeah.
And at the end of the call, we spoke for about 40 minutes. And at the end of the call, she's like, great, well, I'm keen. I'll get an offer to you over next week.
Love Ruby. Love her.
My husband was working from home as well, and I came downstairs and he's like, how'd it go? I said, oh, yeah, they're going to send an offer over next week. And Pat's like, you have a book deal? I was like, I think so. It's like, what? I know. I'm like, I know. And then the other publisher came back with an offer as well. And so then had a choice. But like for me, a firm, I felt really confident that they understood what the book was that I wanted. And that was the most important thing, regardless of money, all sorts like that. And so even if I'd gotten an agent, again, regardless of money, I think I would have wanted to go with a firm. And I'm really, really happy with my choice. I did my research. I knew the publisher I wanted, and they have been fantastic. So
no, it sounds like that, it doesn't matter how many times I hear those stories of people getting their book deal, it just still gives me goosebumps. I love hearing them. But that's an incredible story too. And so well deserved, Madeline. And now we're here. So when was that? So when did you sign? 2023?
Yeah, by the time I signed the contract, it was like, because the other thing is I went through ASA Legal to do a contract check, and I would highly recommend that for people who without an agent.
Yeah.
It's like $450. Victoria from ASA Legal is fantastic. Just get it done. You set yourself up, and protect yourself. And I'm not saying that there was anything strange or odd in the contract, but I think having that reassurance is really worthwhile. Alex Adset also offers that service as well. She's a literary agent, but yeah, she also offers to read contracts. So so by the time we got that sorted, it was August. And then, I guess it's now April. So it's been over 18 months 20 something months, I think.
Yep.
These
Which
things
is
take time,
they
don't they?
take a long, long time.
And
Which
I'm
is very
grateful for
normal.
that time too. It's been really good.
When you think about it, you couldn't rush it anymore, really. Like there's
No,
not really a lot of downtime in that time, which sounds pretty crazy. But you even when we hand our work back that's due by a certain date, there's all this other work going on behind the scenes. Well, behind the scenes for us, but actively in the publishing house to get it to a point, and it absolutely takes all that time.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
there's a lot
And,
that they have to think
and
about.
now we're here, 2 days
Now we're
out.
here, 2 days out. So release date April 29.
That's right.
So exciting. And book launch. So this episode will go to air before your book
That's right.
launch,
It
which is
will.
sold out now. Sorry, everybody who thought they
Yes.
might go. Um, but that sounds incredible. Can you
Yes.
tell everyone a little bit about it anyway?
Yeah, so well, I've got a few other events as well on next week. So I'll be in Sydney on Friday selling books. Oh my God,
Well,
signing
sort
books.
of.
I'll probably try
You
and
got
do
to
a
sell
hand
them for
sell.
people to sign them.
So that'll be really fun. And I'm actually meeting up with some of the Dimmicks head office people over
Nice.
there.
Yeah.
So former Dimmicks bookseller, so it's nice to be able to go and do that. And then Saturday I'm on ABC Melbourne Radio with Jacinta Parsons at 11:20 a.m.
Mhm.
So if you are in Melbourne, tune in to that. And then on Sunday is the book launch in Melbourne. It is sold out, but if you do apply to the wait list, I'm just
Still
checking
probably
tickets.
won't get in because the wait list is probably really long.
There are a few people on the wait list, but we'll see. I'm going to send out an email going, hey, if there's anyone that
You
can't
need an
come, let
after
me know.
party that everyone can go to.
We are having an after party at the Coopers Inn, 5 p.m. So if you do miss out and you want to come
Perfect.
along, please do.
Perfect.
And then on the Tuesday for the following week, yeah, I'll be doing a Dimmicks First Tuesday Book Club. I've got books in bars on the Wednesday. Yeah, then I can't keep up doing library events. I've got some in Willis Hill, which I'm really excited about, and Brighton Library with Marion Taff, with another
Mhm.
debut author who was on the podcast. So that'll
Great.
be really fun. So yeah, lots of things. It's all on my website. So Madeleine Cleary writes. So do come along and say hi. I'd love to see you and chat. And yeah, it's always fun chatting to people who are fans of the podcast.
Mhm.
I'm sure you found that too, Tina, I think, when you had
Yeah,
your events.
yes, yeah. It's so nice. And even Natasha Rise said when she did an event up here in
Yes.
Brisbane, and yeah, there was a couple of people there that were podcast listeners as well. So they came along because they wanted to come and see Natasha in the flesh, and hear her speak.
Amazing.
So Madeline, I noticed that there wasn't any Gold Coast venues on your tour,
Oh,
but I will
sorry.
forgive you. Book two. I want to see you
Two.
up here.
That's right. That's right.
Definitely
When
Brisbane anyway.
well, I
I'll
looked
drive
at
up.
I had a quick chat with Natasha Lester on at Sorrento yesterday, and I was like, "Are you okay?" Like she's got so like her
Mm,
publicity schedule is
mm.
insane, and she's like, "I'm doing well." I'm like, "Good, I'm glad." So book two for my next book. That's what I'm gonna hold out my hopes for because we've got to have goals, right?
Uh-huh,
And it'll
uh-huh.
be a national
True.
book tour. I'll be in the Gold Coast. I'll make
Mm-hmm.
sure of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Mm-hmm.
just inform a firm that that's what I'll be doing.
Yeah, you manifest that and it will happen. And that's actually a really good promo for an upcoming episode that I'm doing with Jane Tara. And we're talking all things manifesting because she's a big believer in it too. And she's had some
Yes,
huge success and she did a lot of manifesting. So if you just plan for that to happen,
that's
Madeline,
right.
you're taking all the steps in the right direction.
Exactly. So this will be it. So, and look, you're having now an interstate book
Oh,
launch as
look at
well.
that.
So
Yes,
you've
yes.
manifested that.
Yeah, you just take the steps and it happens.
That's
That's
right.
my
That's
that's my
right.
theory. So Madeline, that was such an incredible interview. I so enjoyed hearing everything about the book and all some things that I didn't know yet, and your story to publication. And there's lots of top tips in there too. But do you
Mm.
have a top
All right.
tip or
I haven't thought about, oh my God, I'm not prepared. I didn't come with a top tip.
I think it's a surprise that we do this, is it? You had lots though. You had lots of
Okay, no, no, no.
amazing top
Okay.
tips.
Okay, top tip. Yeah,
Look,
I think that my top tip is don't actually I'm gonna relate this to a story. So I was at Sorrento Writers Festival a woman put up her hand in the audience and she asked a question to the panel. And her question was, should I look to get an international agent or an Australian agent? My book is both set in Australia and overseas. And Isabel Carmody, who was one of the authors on the panel, I think her answer was really good. Isabel said, what stage are you up to with your manuscript? She said, oh, I'm about 1/4 of the way through it. And Isabel said, don't even think about publication right now and worry about getting an agent or who should pitch to or how to get your pitch perfected. She's like, you enjoy and focus on your writing. That is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Finding that joy, I think, in the writing and understanding why it is you're writing. If you're writing in mind thinking, oh, I'm going to write it this way because that might actually more appeal to an international audience. And then I might be able to get an international agent. And hey, I might be able to get a 3-book deal with HarperCollins and, earn lots and lots of money. No. Write the story you want to write.
Mm-hmm.
That's my top tip.
That is perfect. And a perfect way to end this amazing episode of the Book Deal podcast. Thank you, Madeleine Cleary, for allowing me to interview you.
Thank you, Tina. This was, I'm going to say it, the most fun interview. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for listening to the Book Deal podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the pod so you can receive updates as soon as our new eps drop. And to keep up to date with what the pod is doing, you can also find us on Instagram.